If you blush in situations where you feel trapped, like meetings, one-on-ones, or even just listening while someone else is talking, then this video is for you. And it's actually video 1 of a 4-part video series where I'm going to walk you through how to stay calm, how to stop feeling embarrassed, how to feel in control of how people perceive you, and how to feel confident no matter how people react, even when you can't move or can't escape. And in this first part, we're going to walk through how to calm the anxiety and the panic that you start to go into when you feel trapped. I'm going to explain the exact reason that I believe that this happens and the exact mental reframes that you can use that have worked for me and some of my clients to stop that panic in its tracks. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Colin Clem, and I overcame my fear and embarrassment around blushing for good after 10 years of dealing with it. And I didn't use makeups, creams, medication, therapy, surgery, or anything like that to do it. And now I run a coaching program where I have helped dozens of other blushers overcome this as well. And I make these videos to give away my knowledge, to earn your trust, and give you a taste of what it's like to be a client in my program, with the ultimate goal of having a few of you become clients of mine to do this much faster, much easier, and much more enjoyable than trying to go solo. And if you're interested in that, I have a free training down below that explains more, or a link to apply directly so that we can chat and see if it's a good fit for you. But today, I want to help you solve that panic that you experience when you start to blush and you start to feel trapped. So let's start with the describing what's happening. Right? So when you feel trapped, this is when you could be stuck in a conversation. This could be a meeting and it starts and you're in a room and the door closes and you know that you're stuck there for an hour or 2 hours for the duration of this meeting and there's nothing you can do about it. This could be a social circle or a group setting where everybody's sitting around and everybody's talking and you're just sitting there kind of in your head panicking about what's going on and you can't move. Right? Because you have to be appropriate, essentially. You know, you don't want to make a scene or whatever it is. And I would say that these are some of the hardest situations to overcome, in my opinion, when I was going through this. And it's been something that almost every single client that I've ever worked with has said as well. And they all say the same thing. You feel the panic, you feel the redness setting in, but it's hard because you don't have your usual things that you can do. You can't move, you can't adjust, you can't speak up and start to physically get yourself in motion. You can't distract yourself from the situation. You can't divert attention away from you. You can't have that mental escape of like, if things get bad, I can just get out of here. And so you're trapped, right? You're just in panic mode and you're stuck and your brain goes like, well, this is it. I guess it's over, GG. And really, like, that's what's going on in your brain, is it thinks it's like end game. And I would say that there's essentially 2 reasons why this situation is so bad. There's 2 main emotions that we need to address that you're experiencing in these situations. First, you might be just freaking out about the feeling of anxiety. Just the fact that your heart starts pumping and you start getting into this, oh no, like really panicked state. That's the first emotion to address. And then the second emotion to address is the overall just embarrassment that you feel. The fact that, oh no, I'm going to turn red and everyone's going to notice. And before we dive into all of this, it's important for you to have just like the baseline understanding. I've talked about this in previous videos, that blushing is only a problem because you think it makes you look blank, unconfident, weak, like you like the other person, that you have feelings for them, that you're uncomfortable around them. Whatever negative characteristic that you don't want is the thing that you're so afraid of blushing saying about you. And you care about other people's opinions, and so that's why it feels so embarrassing to turn red in front of people. Right? And so it's important to have that understanding as you go into this 4-part series, because later on, I'm going to teach you how to break that down as well, that belief. But for the way that I normally teach people to break these beliefs is I normally teach them to basically adopt a new mindset and take new actions. I encourage them to adopt the core mindset of, I'm not going to die. People don't really care or notice, and I can still be confident even if I blush. And then I encourage them to go into situations voluntarily, and starting with things that are small, but like making conversation with the cashier, right? Or simply just raising their hand very quickly in a meeting that they have coming up. finding little opportunities to take action and apply this, to get an opportunity to, trigger the fear, trigger a bit of the panic, and prove that you're not going to die, right? And prove that most people don't really care or notice, and prove that you can still be confident, right? That's essentially the process that I take people through. And as you repeat that process, you get more and more comfortable with it happening, because your brain gets to be like, okay, I survived. That wasn't as bad as I thought. I was kind of making this out to be worse than it was. And it starts to break your beliefs over time, that process repeatedly. But what happens when you feel trapped and there's nothing you can do about it, right? You can't take action. And that's what this video is about, because in these moments, you only have one thing left to rely on, which is your mindset. It's your beliefs. You don't have the luxury of action. You can't just go into the situation, turn your brain off and raise your hand and just survive the moment. You can't do that. You don't have that option. It's all just you versus you in your head while you're sitting there listening to the other person. And so I believe that these moments right here are the ultimate test of what you believe, or of what you choose to believe, really. And so I just want you to pretend for a moment, like right now, pretend that someone were to point out the fact that you were blushing. You were in a situation where you're trapped and someone's like, hey, you're turning red. Are you okay? What is your immediate reaction? Just think about what your immediate reaction would be. If you're thinking to yourself, oh, that would be so embarrassing. I hope that this doesn't happen. I hope that I can go into situations this week and that nobody ever says anything like that. If that's sort of where your mindset's at, then we have work to do, okay? And I encourage you to stick around, because this video is made for you. This entire series should help you a ton. Because the end goal is really to be in this second response here. With these videos and with my coaching program, whatever route you take forward, I want you to be able to get to the point where someone points out you're blushing and you're able to think to yourself, yeah, I could choose to be embarrassed if I wanted to, but this is just the way that I am, right? It doesn't mean anything. It's just something that happens. It doesn't mean I'm unconfident. It doesn't mean I'm weak. It's just my body's natural stress response. And if that is your response, if somebody was to point this out, that is self-confidence. And it really comes from choosing to respond with that over and over and developing the right beliefs, the right counter arguments to the urges and the fears that you have, even when it's trying to get you to freak out, even when it's trying to get you to feel ashamed, right? And so to get to that point of thinking this is just something that happens, it all comes down to developing a set of powerful mental responses that you can use when you feel that panic setting in, to get you from being in this out of control, super panicked, super scattered, oh my goodness state, to this feeling of being back in control. I'm going to be fine. I got this. Let's continue on. And being rather unbothered by it, right? It all comes down to the way that you're able to respond to those panic thoughts. And in situations where you can't move, that becomes all you have left, right? You don't have anything to physically distract you. And so these mental responses are the only thing that you have left. And so there's basically 4 layers of these mental responses or beliefs that you need to develop in order to get from feeling super embarrassed about your blushing to feeling like this is just something that happens. And I believe that once you truly believe each and every one of these, then your blushing problem's solved, because there's going to be no situation that you can't handle. So for example, the 4 layers that I'm going to walk you through in this 4-part video series, and each one of these is going to have their own part, is first of all, the general anxiety that you feel, right? That overall panic that you start to go into. How do you address that so you're not absolutely freaking out and thinking you're going to die? That's the first step. Then, once you know you're not going to die, then how do you address that overall embarrassment that you feel around this? The fact that it feels so noticeable, that everybody's looking. How do you address that? Then, once you know how to address that, What about when it happens in front of somebody important, right? Somebody, it's like you only deal with this around these particular people or in these particular settings, and it happens every single time, and it's so frustrating, and you want to be able to handle those situations, right? I'm going to teach you how to handle those situations. And then once you handle those situations, all that you have left, if you think about it, is just the moments where somebody actually judges you, the moments when somebody actually points it out on you. And I'm going to teach you how to handle those. And if you can handle all of these situations, from the most general, just the largest, broadest of that feeling of anxiety, all the way down to the specific moments on somebody pointing it out on you, if you know how to handle all of those, and you're able to develop the appropriate mental responses to get you feeling from being out of control to back in control, like no one can bother you, then you've truly solved your problem. You won't fear this anymore. You won't have the constant embarrassment anymore. You'll feel the blushing happening. You'll be able to know how to respond, and you'll be back in control within seconds. And you feel like this is just like, I just know how to handle this now. And it's not going to feel like blushing is this thing that controls your life any longer. Okay? And so that's what the point of this this 4-part video series is for. And so today I want to just focus very quickly on this bottom layer. And these videos, they're not going to be crazy long, but I want to break it up so that way they're more digestible for you. So this first one, we're going to talk about this general anxiety. Now, as I mentioned, to solve these situations in particular where you feel trapped, they're among the hardest to overcome, because for any of these to even work, for you to truly change your beliefs in any of these, then you need to, for this to actually work, there's a first step that you need to take. And that first step, especially if you're at a point where this is controlling what you can and can't do, like where it's really bad, like you're avoiding going places because of this, it's crucial that you do this. You have to, this is currently you, right? This, if you can see this, I don't know if you're listening on Spotify, but there's like a video portion that you can watch for a second. But essentially you have these thoughts right now that are just a mess, right? You're an anxious mess when it comes to these blushing situations. And so the thing that you absolutely must do, it's crucial, is that you identify some of these situations where you're experiencing this anxiety, and you get some quick and easy wins. You have to voluntarily put yourself in some of these situations as soon as you can. And the whole goal of this is just to prove to yourself that you're going to survive, and that it's really not as extreme as your brain tries to make it out to be. Right? You have to go from having this overall panic mess, this whole uncertainty of what's going to happen, to having a few wins under your belt where you're like, okay, I made it through. It wasn't as bad as I thought. You just need to have that experience of feeling that panic set in, feeling your face start to turn red, and being like, look, you're not dead. Everyone else is so focused on what they're doing in their own life. They have their own problems. You are not the center of attention like you think you are. You know, and you need to just go through that a few times, if not dozens of times, to be able to have this baseline understanding for the rest of this to even work for you. And you're going to see why here in a second. So with that being said, once you've gone through some of these situations, you've spoken up to the cashier, you've talked to the stranger, you've given them a compliment, you've raised your hand in the meeting, you just said hi to your coworker that really scares you or makes you nervous. Like whatever the easy situation is that you can get these quick and easy exposures to the fear, then you're going to have a baseline level of experience that we can work off of. Now, let's get into the 4 layers of belief that you need to develop. And like I said, in this first video, we're just going to target this first layer, which is that general panic that you go into. It's that overall anxiety. And I would say that this is the most intense layer because it feels like there's the most at stake. Like this literally feels like you're going to die when you're at this point where this is truly bothering you. And I'll tell you that all of the layers here, including this one, all of the pain that we experience, it starts with the limiting beliefs that we have toward these situations. So when you have that general feeling of anxiety in a situation where you're trapped, you've likely developed the belief that I'm going to die. I'm going to make a scene. I'm going to need medical help. Right? One of these beliefs is something that you truly believe, and it's something that you're truly afraid of happening. So for example, for me, when I was going through this, when I was at the thick of it, what used to happen is I used to feel my heart rate starting to rise, right? Like the door would close, the meeting would start, or like the class would start in my situation. And I would be maybe in like a circle where everybody can see me. And I know that like if I blush, it's going to be very noticeable and there's nothing I can do about it. So I'd feel my heart start to race. It would get harder and harder for me to breathe. My mind would instantly be thinking like it would just start panicking. I'd be like, oh my God, like this isn't even about redness anymore. I was like, this heart rate, like this anxiety, this tightness that I'm feeling, it's going to end up so bad. You're going to have to get out of here. You might even have to get up and get some medical help. You're going to make a huge scene. Everyone's going to look at you. Everyone's going to wonder what's going on. You're going to have to go to the hospital. You're going to be the talk of the town. And you know what? You might even die. Like this is honestly some of the thoughts that would start racing through my mind. And so you feel yourself, if you can relate to that, you feel yourself starting to panic. And you panic about the fact that you're panicking. And so what do you think that causes? More panic, right? And so this is how, in my opinion, a panic attack starts. You panicking about your own panic, feeling out of control and like your body's about to go on some ridiculous roller coaster ride, right? Now, obviously, the answer to solving that panic is to get yourself to calm down, clearly, right? Because you're being dramatic. And you're probably like, no shit, Colin. Like I've tried that every time. Every time that I'm in that situation, I try to get myself to calm down, and I can't get myself to calm down. And so my belief on why that is, and my belief that on why I was stuck with this for so long, is because if you're dealing with this anxiety, and this is a big issue for you, you feel that anxiety and you can't seem to get yourself to calm down, I believe it's because you see the anxiety as a real threat, like a real threat to your safety. For years, I believed that if my anxiety got so bad, if my heart rate got so bad, if I started breathing so hard, that I might pass out, I might embarrass myself and need to get help. I would have to leave, right? And people would wonder what's wrong. Like I genuinely saw those as real concerns of things that could actually happen. And so what did I do? When I was going into these situations, because I had this belief and I felt myself starting to panic, I told myself, like, Colin, you need to calm down or else this is going to get out of hand. But do you think that telling yourself you need to calm down or else you're going to die would help anyone calm down? No, of course not, right? And so there's no breathing technique. There's no distraction that's going to be strong enough that would be so effective to overcome that belief if you truly believe in your mind that there is a chance that you might die, right? That is going to override everything. And so in order to solve this, you have to break that belief. Right? You have to break the belief that anxiety is a real threat to your safety. And you have to develop stronger belief in the counter argument that I'm going to unveil here in a second. In this case, the counter argument or the empowering belief is that I'm not going to die. I'm not going to need help. I don't need an escape. I'm going to be fine, no matter how bad it feels. Once you truly believe this statement, you will stop fearing the anxiety, right? Because you're going to feel that panic start to set in. You're going to feel that fear start to set in. And you'll have a phrase like this that you can repeat to yourself to override that default panic that your body is so ready to go into. Okay? But the key to making this work that I don't hear enough people talking about is that you can't just repeat this to yourself and expect to solve your problem, because you need proof. In the middle of the panic, in the middle of that situation, in order to calm yourself down, saying these words to yourself, I'm not going to die, I won't need help, I don't need escape, I'm fine. That's not enough if you don't truly believe it. You need to truly believe it. And the only way to truly believe it is if you've collected evidence firsthand from your lived experiences that that is true. That is when you will truly believe it. So just like trying to amp yourself up isn't enough. If you haven't faced your fear head on before, it's just going to be words. It's not going to be a belief. And so you're going to repeat them to yourself. You're going to feel your heart continuing to race, and you're going to start doubting it. You're going to be like, I don't think Colin's method is working. Like, I might actually die. I'm going to freak out, right? Like, that's what's going to happen. And so just to prepare you mentally for what to expect as you start to go into some of these situations here, to start building up that first bit of evidence that you're not going to die, you're the first times that you're going to apply this in your life, you're going to doubt it a little bit. You're going to go into that panic, and you're going to worry that you might actually die because you don't have any proof built up yet. And all you're doing is just trusting me. You're just trusting that this will work for you based on the logic that I've tried to convey to you, right? And I hope that this is logically making sense for you, because that's the basis. It's like, if it logically makes sense, then you can get yourself to emotionally commit to just trying it, right? But it's not enough to just trust me or just like have it logically make sense, because when your brain's going into survival mode, it's very emotional, and so you need to have logical proof, like irrefutable proof that shows that you have done this before. Because that's why it's important to go into situations before even trying to solve the situations where you feel trapped. Because once you've had that panic set in, once you've repeated those lines to yourself, and you've stayed put, and you've survived, then you will have proof to work off of. And so when you go into the next situation, when you go into a situation where you feel trapped, you won't feel the need to take action. Like, you will want to, sure. Like, you're going to get that urge, but you can mentally remind yourself, I faced this before, and I was fine. Right? So bring it on. Like, panic harder. I don't care. Like, I'm not going to die. I just want to show you that I'm not going to die. No matter how long I sit here, I don't need to leave the situation. Once you've developed evidence of that, that is when you can truly start calming down in a situation where you feel trapped. So to give you sort of just an explanation of how this worked in my journey is, in the beginning of my journey, I started raising my hand in class with the mindset of, I'm going to face this fear. I don't care what other people think of me anymore. Like, I need to do this for me. And what would happen is I would feel my heart starting to pound before I did that. But because I felt in control, because I was voluntarily putting myself in the situation, I was able to raise my hand, and I was able to get through the situation without going into an absolute panic attack. And I was able to build just dozens of proof points that I can feel my heart racing. I can feel my shortness of breath. I can feel everything tightening up, and I'm going to be fine. I can still get through the situation. It's not going to kill me. Having that experience then helped me apply it to situations where I was less in control, like getting called on randomly. And in those situations, I was able to remind myself, like when I got the attention turned to me, even though I didn't have time to prepare, the second that I felt that attention turned to me and I felt the anxiety start and I felt the redness start to come up, I was able to remind myself, this is the same feeling as when I raised my hand voluntarily. And I was fine then, so I'm going to be fine now. And then once I had a bunch of experiences like that under my belt, only then did I start to develop the ability to feel calmer in situations where I was trapped, right? Situations like I mentioned earlier, that where we'd be in a circle, the door would close, it would be a tight environment, bright overhead lights, it's kind of hot in the room, right? Like worst case scenario, the meeting starts or the class starts, everybody starts talking, maybe we have to go around and share. We'd just be like sitting in a circle. And the intrusive blushing thoughts would completely take over. They would start kicking in right away because I knew how long I would have to sit here and how bad this would be, especially if it's like a discussion. And before building this evidence, I would have been like, oh my God, please don't have a panic attack, right? It wasn't even as much about the blushing as it was about the fact that I was just feeling incredibly anxious. I was like, please don't make a scene, like don't die. Don't let this get so bad that you have to run out of the room and get medical help. But now that I had gone through all of these situations multiple times with intention, and I was able to build up all this proof, I was able to tell myself, you're going to be fine, right? You're not going to die. And in fact, bring it on. Like, let me show you that you're going to be okay. And I truly believed those words because I had dozens of proof points built up. I had dozens of memories, moments that I could recall to back up that statement. And that firsthand experience of going through these situations and surviving is the strongest evidence that you can build, right? You can only trust me so much. The only things that you will truly believe in life are the things that you have experienced firsthand. And so once you have belief in that counter argument, once you can say with confidence, I am not going to die, I won't need help, and I don't need to escape, based on all the past times that I've gotten through this, then I'm going to be fine. Only at that point is it when you can calm yourself down. Because you're not going to care as much if your heart is racing. You're not going to feel the pressure to get your heart rate down. You're not going to feel the pressure to be able to breathe again. Like, you're going to want to. Yes, you're going to feel like uncomfortable. But you're also going to be in a state of mind where you're okay if you let it do its thing. And then you can focus on, yes, doing some of your breathing techniques or whatever you have. And over time, your anxiety in those situations calms down, right? And the better you get at this, the faster it calms down. And eventually, you build up so much proof that you stop experiencing the anxiety altogether, right? And so, for the most part, I'll still say, to this day, I still feel anxious many, many times. Like, I feel anxious almost every day in a situation, like whether it's my turn to go up or I have a call with somebody that I've never met before. I get anxious just like if you apply for my program, just so you're aware, like if you apply for my program and we get in a call together to chat about it, I feel anxious before that. Like I just, because I'm meeting somebody new, I'm like, I hope they like me. Like, I hope it's a good conversation. I hope that they're nice. And so I get a little bit of these fears and just overall anxiety that I hope this goes well. I hope I make a good first impression. I hope we hit it off and it goes well, right? I get a little bit of that going on. And so, but with that being said, I'm at a point where I'm like, I've done this before, right? I can get through this. And so it doesn't turn into an absolute panic. It just feels like a little bit of anxiety. And to be honest with you, just a little bit of a side note, one thing that my parents always told me growing up that I absolutely loved that they told me, and I've applied this to my life ever since. It's just like the feeling of being nervous, the feeling of being a little bit anxious. It's just because you care. You care about doing well. Like, you care about the situation, the call, the interaction. You care about it going well. And you're a little bit worried that something might cause it to go wrong, right? And so it's not an issue. Like, you don't want to see anxiety as this problem that you must be eliminated from your life. If anything, it shows that you actually have some skin in the game and that you actually care about how it goes. But once you go through these situations over time, your level of anxiety calms down dramatically, and you don't feel the need for it to be solved immediately. You don't feel like you're going to die because of this. And so this is my experience, and this is what I've taught some of my clients as well. And I know that everyone has their own opinion on anxiety, but if you're on my channel and you're ever considering being a client of mine, just know that we don't believe in relying on meds for the rest of your life over here, okay? And if you do believe that, if you do think you need anxiety medication, I encourage you to keep watching my videos and challenge that belief. But I think most of you don't believe that you want to be on medication for the rest of your life either, right? And so I'll just tell you, in my opinion, anxiety is just a fear of something that feels out of your control. It's not a characteristic. It's just an emotion that you experience when you have fears of things that feel out of your control, like hoping somebody's okay, hoping that this situation goes well, hoping nobody says anything, right? These are out of your control. You can't physically have control over that. And so the fear of that is what causes you to feel so anxious. And it can be solved by proving that fear wrong. It can be solved by realizing that the outcome you're so afraid of is either extremely unlikely or it's not as bad as you thought it was. And right now, you fear that your heart racing and your shortness of breath is going to lead to you dying, or it's going to lead to you going to the hospital. It's going to lead to you making a huge scene, right? And that fear of those outcomes is what makes you feel so panicked. It's what makes you go into that panic attack. That's my understanding of anxiety. And in my experience, once you prove that fear wrong, once you stop believing that it's going to lead to you going to the hospital, making a huge scene, or dying, then you're going to stop going into that spiral. You're going to notice a significant reduction in your anxiety. Now, that's just to calm the anxiety, right? That's literally just the first step of proving to yourself that you're not going to die in this situation where you feel trapped. That's how you prevent yourself from going into an absolute panic attack. But the reason that the anxiety started in the first place is that you thought, oh no, I'm going to blush. Oh no, I'm going to turn red. Everybody's going to notice. And the idea of that happening is incredibly embarrassing for you, especially when you can't physically move or you can't draw attention away from you. So in the next part of this series, I want to teach you how to handle the general embarrassment of, oh my gosh, I'm turning red. Everyone's going to notice and there's nothing I can do about it because I'm trapped, right? That thought process of everyone seeing you and feeling so embarrassed, I'm going to teach you how to handle that. And that's going to be the focus of the next video. So if you got value from this video, if you're somebody who is dealing with that panic and you learned some things to learn how to solve it, then please give it a like, leave a comment down below with your thoughts, and subscribe for more. If you want to learn more about my coaching program, I have a free training below as well with links to apply directly if you're just ready to go. And we can chat about where you're at and see if it's a good fit for you. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.